Does this molecule show an ionic or covalent bond? Each of these circles represent different valence electrons around the atoms. You can see each atom here wants to have 8 electrons in its outer orbital. In this case, these two atoms are sharing these 2 electrons, so this is an example of a covalent bond. All right, what about this molecule? Is this showing an ionic or covalent bond? You can probably guess this is an ionic bond because sodium here is giving or transferring an electron to chlorine. This will give chlorine the 8 electrons it wants. And even though sodium lost one, it's still going to have 8 in its lower orbital. All right, what about this molecule? Is this showing an ionic or covalent bond? This again is showing an ionic bond since magnesium is giving an electron to both of these atoms. All right, what about this one? Is this showing an ionic or covalent bond? Once again, this is an ionic bond because again, aluminum here is giving an electron to these 3 atoms. What about this molecule? Is it showing an ionic or covalent bond? Since carbon is sharing 4 electrons with these 4 atoms of hydrogen, and the same with these hydrogen atoms sharing their 1 electron with carbon, these are examples of covalent bonds. What about this molecule? Is this showing an ionic or covalent bond? So technically, hydrogen is actually okay with only having 2 electrons in its orbital. So this is showing a covalent bond. What about this molecule? Is this an ionic or covalent bond? We have our central carbon surrounded by 2 oxygens that are sharing these electrons, so this is an example of a covalent bond. What about this? Is this an ionic or covalent bond? We can see potassium donating its electron to iodine, which means this is an ionic bond. And lastly, what about this molecule? Is this an ionic or covalent bond? Again, we have 2 oxygens, and this time they are sharing 4 electrons, which means this is going to be a double bond and a covalent bond.